Snoopy is a Sudanese filmmaker, storyteller, and cinematographer whose work centers around documenting themes of identity, displacement, and resilience. With a background in independent filmmaking and documentary storytelling, his projects highlight unheard voices and untold stories, particularly from communities affected by conflict and migration. One such film is called Khartoum, when war breaks out due to a military coup, more than 10 million people are displaced, including the filmmakers and their protagonists, and the film team is forced to adapt their project to their new reality. Khartoum, the resulting documentary, follows the group as they leave Sudan for East Africa and collectively reenact their personal stories of survival and freedom. The film premiered at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival, where it was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize in World Cinema, the documentary category, and premiered in Europe at the Berlin International Film Festival, where it won the Berlin Film Peace Award. It is premiering in Africa at the Encounter South African International Documentary Film Festival, which is what brings me and Ibrahim together today. Thank you for joining us in this interview. How's the festival encounters been so far?
So far, like I want to start saying that South Africa is one of the best places that I visited this year, and also encounters, man. It's like it's warm, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a warm festival. Everyone's so friendly, and I feel like I'm around my family more than just a guest that has a film. But like everyone engaging with me in a friendly way, and I'm not feeling like I'm part of South Africa.
And you actually have a screening
Yeah,
tonight.
exactly.
How are you feeling about that?
Well, I mean, every screening I get nervous a bit, even though I've been doing it for a while since the beginning of the year since Sundance. But I guess that it's kind of like um screening it at home. You know what I'm saying? Like here in South Africa in our African premiere. So yeah, I'm a bit nervous, but it's fine.
I think it's gonna go fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing the film live with the rest of the audience. And I guess that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the film. For many people who are watching, they're going to have lots of questions about your filmmaking techniques.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good place to start. This film was disrupted by the war. So I wonder what film you actually intended to make before the conflict broke out.
I guess that the film was intended to be about our same characters, but also there were other additional characters in the film, and it was about how they were living in this cosmopolitan capital city of Khartoum, and how each one of them have a different social class, and how they all come together to create this city. But also at the same time, addressing these issues like some kind of subliminal conflict between us because it's been there for a while, and we're not aware of it, and some people are neglecting it. So we wanted to explore like the roots of all these people from different backgrounds, how they came into Khartoum City, were they forced to come here or is it by choice? We were just trying to like unravel what happened in Khartoum in the last like couple of years or
And then
decades.
war breaks out. You
Yeah,
chase what the film's about.
exactly. So we didn't change too much, but also we added a lot, which is like the green screen. In terms of story, we added the element of them escaping war and then relocating in East Africa, in Kenya. So we added that part, and also they were telling us their stories about what they've been through during the war, and from a personal perspective, and from a human side also. It's not like this general idea of we have 12 million displaced and all these statistics and numbers. We wanted to drop in their daily struggle when they were doing, during war.
Yeah, so basically what you're talking about is inside the film, the characters are actually put in front of a green screen,
Exactly.
and then as they're talking about what happened to them, is these reenactments which are put on the screen.
Yeah.
Take us through that process. How difficult was that? How, why did you do the green screen as well?
That's a good question. Um, when we were like kind of like finishing the film, then obviously war erupted. Like we didn't know what to do. Like we had a lot of material, but also this new element came in. So we wanted to mix in between. So we couldn't film with them getting out of Khartoum because it was very dangerous at that time. And because it was also dangerous for us to go because I was relocated in Kenya. So it was hard for me to go back there and then film with them. So the story was there, but we wanted to get it out of their, mind. So we wanted to find a creative way of how to get it out and put it on the screen. So we experimented a lot with interviews, reenactment, uh, green screen, something called Dreamscape, and we mixed it all together.
Tell us about Dreamscape.
Yeah. So Dreamscape is about this kind of like thing where we all human have, where we have like dreams and fantasies of, you know, like sometimes I dream of, flying like Superman. So we tapped in to each character. What is your dream?
Like the children who are riding the line.
Exactly, exactly. Like the children always wanted because they're riding donkeys around Cartoon City. So we told them what would be the alternative. They would be like we're riding lions and this going around Cartoon. Might be because he's a pigeon racer and he has a lot of pigeons. So he would imagine himself like flying when he was a kid, like flying on top of the city of Cartoon with this kind of like POV from
And there's another
above.
character that likes the mountain.
Exactly. So for Mullah, because she's very much rooted in her area, so she always wanted to go back there and help people in the city.
I found that interesting because when many people think about a documentary, they think about cinema verite,
Yeah.
they think about a camera in the corner that just shows real world events. But I think reenactments plays a powerful role in filling the gaps on what you cannot film and what you cannot see.
Exactly. And then it puts you on this kind of like dreamy sequence because we all dream, right? We all go to sleep at night. We dream, whether it's nightmare or a beautiful dream, but it's part of our, life. So we wanted to put that part in the film also because at the end of the day, they're humans. They go through everything, a lot of things during their day, but at the end, there's this also dream part or sleeping part, whatever. But we wanted to put that on screen, not just following their daily life during the day, but what do they think at night.
That is powerful, but there is also a bit of daily life in the film. And I read somewhere that some of the scenes that you shot in Sudan were shot using iPhones.
Yeah.
So why were iPhones used? And take us a bit through that process of actually shooting a documentary on an iPhone.
I think that first, it's always producers complain about cost. We all know that. But no, uh, Apple supported us. So they provided us with phones. And also, in terms of story, um, the ideal thing was to shoot with an iPhone because you can get up close with the characters. And at the same time, because Sudan's environment is a little bit, full of governmental issues and like there was, like instability. You know what I'm saying? So to hold a camera, camera, that would be very dangerous. And we would get arrested all the time. Even with phones, we got arrested. So to have a whole big camera, that wasn't really ideal for our situations. So we were shooting with phones, and also because people don't take phones seriously, so we were able to film moments where we would be able to take on camera at the same time because the teeny lady, for example, she had a lot of customers and all of that. So usually anyone shoots with a phone. It can be a selfie or a short funny video, right? But no one would ever think that this is a serious film, like a feature film. So we were able to film scenes with her without having like people looking at the camera or like being a little bit annoyed or disturbed by us.
Which is so important for a documentary. Did you add any attachments to the iPhones, or did you really just take an iPhone and shoot?
In some uh, cases, we had like a cage with a handle, but for the most, it was just the iPhone because even any additional accessory would make it look like it's a serious thing. So we wanted to avoid that.
I like that scene, the montage scene, where they're just showing the different people of Sudan doing whatever they're doing, but sometimes they're just staring into the camera. And there was this good focus on like making the people the narrators at some point. So I want to talk through that sort of decision to make people the center of the documentary.
Yeah, I guess that, um, like I said, we went through a lot of drastic, changes in the film. So we whatever idea that we have, we just go there and film it during the uh, after the war. But right before the war, we were trying also to use all these kind of audio extracts, elements from cartoon, character narrating their scenes or other scenes. We were trying to work around all these kind of different creative uh, things. But after war, like we didn't have a lot of options, but also that put us in a more creative direction of using whatever we have in a creative way. So we just left it for the amazing editor, and he did.
Speaking about that, this is a film that actually has four directors,
Yeah.
and four of you cover different subjects. And then there's a creative director, Phil Cox,
Mm.
who I imagine puts it all together. Why was it like that? Why are there four directors of one film? What's Phil's role in all of this?
Yes.
This is just an interesting, groundbreaking, you're a co-director of the film. I find that really beautiful, but I mean, why was it that way?
Um, so it all started with an open call by Phil's company, and which was producing the film, and also a local Sudanese establishment called Sudan Film Factory. So both producers, Giovanna and Tulala Fifi, came up with the whole idea with Phil, and they did an open call for emerging filmmakers, to submit their stories under one theme. So we all got selected, and we worked together. Um, a lot of people have concerns like, how can you guys work together for directors? Everyone has his own kind of vision. Then it's hard to maintain or collaborate. But it was easy to me because I've worked with most of the directors in the past. So to me, it was like just working another again on a different level, on a different project, but also because each director had his own point of view with their characters. So that also brought like different perspective. For example, I wouldn't be able to see the kids in the film in real life. I might see them around, but I wouldn't think that they have like a backstory. That's why Ralia, when she used to go to work, she would see them every morning. And then one day she was interested in knowing what are these kids and where they come from, how their life would be. Also, maybe like I wouldn't have any kind of uh, relation with someone like maybe until the film. I wanted to explore like what does it look like having pigeons, race, and also at the same time working as a government, official or what's it called? Uh, yeah, working for the government. So it was like kind of like exploring all these different things. I would have seen Jawad because we were all protesting, and I was seeing him on the street, but also his backstory of the Sufi kind of Rasta guy that goes to the protest and carries the injured people. So I would see a lot of friends doing that, but I wouldn't think that.
Yeah. So for those who haven't seen this film, Ibrahim is basically talking about the different subjects that they used as the anchor for the documentary, and Majdi was your anchor, the person that you followed, and you're responsible for filming. But the other co-directors also had their own people that they were anchoring.
Sure.
How did you find Majdi, and why were you so enthralled to
Yeah.
make this the anchor for you?
So Magdi was one of the early. I had another character in the film before the war. That, like I said, there were way many other different uh, characters in the film, and then like somehow we had to like change all these different things, and then I got introduced to Magdi by the producer and another director. So, and then that's how the story started, getting to know him bit by bit. But also after I knew him back then because he was assigned to another director, and then because that director couldn't finish, continue with what's happening in Sudan and all this kind of stress. So I took over, his character, and I dropped mine. So there's a lot of
There's a lot of practical decision making,
exactly.
but it also sounds like part of that sort of negotiation between you and the film and the different directors is what makes the project so cohesive. I don't share the opinion that having four directors was a disadvantage. I agree that it was a strength. But maybe behind the scenes, there's always going to be negotiations.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you navigate that? As a filmmaker, when you've got those negotiations, you have to make what's making a film.
I guess that we were all kind of like humble enough to like understand that this isn't something that you can have kind of like selfish, opinion, or like this is only mine. I'm not gonna share it with anyone. But we all were working together on each other's films, meaning that I would help Rawiya on her film with the kids and how to direct them, and sometimes they would, Rawiya and Timmy also would help me on my story. So it was kind of like a, you know, collaboration environment more than this is my story. So egos were on the side.
Okay, that's really good. The film's very symbolic. So your character follows pigeons, symbol pigeons, and have a symbol of balancing and a symbol of lions. You want to talk a bit about symbolism? Why was it so important to put out a lot of symbolism in the film?
I guess also it's kind of like a cinematic language, not to put everything, on screen, but also Sudan has a lot of symbols, the Sufi, the spiritual world, the camel in the film. You've seen that scene where the camel keeps like spinning and spinning, and so we wanted to address the issues of Sudan, but without directly addressing them in a symbolic way, because also it's kind of like uh, not only for security reasons, but also to put it in a context that you should understand what's happening in Sudan through symbols instead of all these kind of like, news or numbers or putting cards and stuff like that. So through symbols, you would understand that, oh, okay, that's what's happening in Sudan. So trying to like create this, you know, creative image.
Yes, and that was very effective. I mean, we know there's a war happening, but you're not showing us footage of like soldiers shooting at people and
Exactly.
and everyone crying. But maybe we do need to talk a bit about the war.
Mhm.
Why was there a decision to not actually shoot the war itself and focus more on the war
Mm.
and maybe the people in the film also have their perspective on the war as well.
Exactly. I think that we had in mind that we don't want it to be another war film, another like kind of like reportage kind of film where you have all these different horrible imagery, and then also because it's available everywhere, right? You can log on to any Facebook or social media and see all these deaths. So I think people are not necessarily fed up with it, but they want to see it in a different way, right? Like if I show you someone killing another person, you might have nightmares or any kind of traumatic episodes, but just to narrate it, narrate uh, the story through a character or protagonist in a way that you can feel how they felt without even seeing those horrible images. I think it's can connect audience way more than those violent images.
There's a character that mentioned that in response to war, many of the people in Sudan either choose silence or migration, and obviously the characters in the film migrates most of them to Kenya.
Yeah.
Um, so, what's your opinion of this, like silence versus migration? I know that maybe wasn't the dominant theme of the film, but it really stood out for me that uh, that was the response to Sudanese people.
I guess that we also wanted to highlight this kind of like the biggest displacements happening now at 12 million people. So these are like five stories, but there's like way more people that are being displaced all over East Africa and other parts of the world. So we wanted to highlight also that issue in a way that, like I said, it's not another number, like all these kind of statistics. So what people go through when they're displaced, you're in a new environment and try to figure out life and away from your community and all these kind of different things that you used to. Now you have to figure out life in a different way, in a different environment, knowing the cultural uh, issues of this new environment and knowing the language, all these kinds of different barriers that you have to cross in order for you to be able to adapt to this new world.
And speaking about adaptation, how are the migrants faring in their new communities? Most of the film was focusing on Sudanese film again, of course. But I mean, are those migrants adapting in other environments? Like as a filmmaker, that was not really included. There was at the very end of the film, very quickly. There's that part at the end where they show how each person is doing
Yeah.
necessarily in text form. What is the decision making there in terms of not actually shooting them as they're walking around the streets of Kenya, focusing on that part.
I guess that we did shoot a little bit about their life in Kenya, but I did think that that's not what people will focus on more in the film. So they want to focus on what they've been through all the way to arriving in Kenya. So the whatever they're doing now, we just had it like in a short form, like a few minutes at the end of the cards. But yeah, I mean, it's not to me also like the more information you put on in the film about their life in Sudan, that would be ideal because there's a lot of issues that are happening in this community. That's what led to the war. Exactly. So we wanted to highlight that part more than how their life is right now. So starting like 100 years ago, all the way to the independence, and then coup after coup. So we wanted to understand this kind of the community of Sudan. What's always uh, making them have to have a coup or like a transitional government and protests and all that. We wanted to highlight that as well because in our like target audience, it was also the Sudanese people because we don't understand each other very well. There's like almost 400 tribes in Sudan, and there's a lot of homework to do, right? So we just did a little bit of and that kind of like exploring how the Spanish community was brought together, but there's still like a lot of things that need to highlight. But at least this is our point.
That was actually very effective in the film because I know at some parts there's conversations about am I Arab, am I
Yeah.
African, and there's like this tension of ethnicities and identities. And I thought, it's very interesting to explore that outwardly because that is also a conversation that's happening on the continent right now about who are we, what is
Or
our,
we
our
then were
identity.
our roots and stuff.
Yeah. So maybe a good place where the film sort of ends is like ask the subjects. I don't know what question was asked, but it seems as if they were asked, how do you feel about Sudan's future?
Yeah.
And basically what they're saying, it seems like that's what they answered. And many of them are saying, no, Sudan's eventually going to get out of this crisis. They all have hope for the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the general feeling you get from the people in Sudan that we will get out of this conflict into general, we'll get out of this displacement, violence, war.
Yeah, yeah.
One day they will be in a war.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, we all have that hope, and this is what we feed on. Like, for example, to me, I'm living in Kenya, but if I lose that hope of returning back to Sudan, I don't know what will happen, but I wouldn't even survive another day. But that hope that keeps me alive, that one day everything's gonna be all right. We're gonna go back home and rebuild our community and see our people and share like this kind of like diaspora experience, displacement experience, and trying to like solve this issue and then prevent it from happening again in the future.
Well, the film does make me hopeful as well. I want to transition a bit from the film to you. So just briefly talk about yourself for the people who might be very interested to know who's the person who made this film.
Yeah.
Well, one of the co-directors at least. They call you Snoopy.
Yeah.
Is there a background to that?
I mean, like back in the day, I used to rap, and then we had like there was this underground hip hop scene in Sudan. So like everyone was assigned like a name after a famous rapper. So this guy, a friend of mine, he just threw the name Snoop because he thought that I looked like Snoop. And then the name just stuck there since then.
You do have that vibe.
Yeah, kind of, that's why I got.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. And I saw on one of the biographies on your reviews that you referred to as a third culture child.
Yeah.
What was that about?
I mean, I was born in the Middle East, in Sudan, and two immigrant parents, and both of them are from different countries. So I was looking around, like, does that even have a name? Like being born to different parents, they're parents from different countries, and in another third country. So this is where the term third generation
That makes a lot of
comes.
sense. So you were born in Beirut,
Exactly.
Lebanon,
Yeah,
and also a country that's got this history of displacement.
exactly.
Sudan's got this history of displacement. So would you say that you've interacted a lot with displacement growing up, and that maybe influenced your interest?
Exactly. Because I feel like I have so much experience now with displacement. Like back in 2006, all the way to like the recent war in 2023. So I'm trying to like change, channel that experience into like movies and themes that I approach in my movie.
Yeah. Speaking about your films very quickly, this is not your first film you've been involved in.
Yeah.
You've been involved in Sudan Remember Us,
Yeah.
and that was about the fall of Omar al-Bashir.
Exactly.
Can that be seen as a prequel to this film?
That's a good one. I mean that yeah, you consider it as a prequel because it has a lot to do with a specific period of time right before Omar Bashir fell, or around that time when there was a popular sitting in April. Then also it's like character based, so you can also see these different perspectives of how different youngsters were thinking around that time, and from a point of view of what was happening in the streets rather than higher positions.
And what was your involvement in that film?
I was one of the main cameramen, so I was filming with the director for a while, all these different characters.
And you've also a camera operator in Khartoum Offside,
Yeah.
which won Best Documentary Footage. You've
Yeah.
also been involved in a film called Journey to Kenya.
Yeah.
But is this your first like directorial debut there?
No,
Feature.
I directed. Yeah, it's my first feature debut. All the other projects I was involved as a cameraman, but except for a Journey to Kenya because I was the director and the cameraman and the editor. But this is like my first film as a director.
Congratulations. This is a really great film to start off on. For all those who want to access the film, I imagine it's going on its festival run.
Yeah.
So make sure that if you do attend the film festival,
Yeah.
Khartoum is one of the
Come
films
over
to
and
meet.
watch it for me. Get supported.
Thank you so much for joining us today in Cape Town at Encounters at African International Documentary Film Festival.